so honored. First of all, I've never had an event where they give out free cigars and sushi, so I appreciate it. This is great, and you know we're moving up. Thank you so much for all of you coming here. Shelby, thank you for doing this, for this organization. This is fantastic. This is the kind of event. Thank you. This is the kind of event I was about to say at the end of a long week, it's actually the beginning of a long week, that gives you the energy to keep going, and I'm honored, and I know that all of you have choices about things you can be doing tonight, because the World Series is on tonight, right? Game 5. And so I know there are other choices out there, the things you could be watching or doing tonight. The last thing you need is another political speech in your life. But I appreciate you all being going to take this here. A little truth tonight? Good. I apologize. This is not going to be the best speech you've ever heard. My teleprompter got left behind in my end. I appreciate you guys being here, I really do. You know, this is a time of a lot of noise in politics. You guys are hearing about these races. You know, the one in New York, Congressional District 23, conservative Republicans have asserted themselves in that race, and over the last month have stood up to some of the establishment and so forth. People wonder, what is all that noise about? What is it that people are talking about? Why is all this happening? What is so different about this time in our history from other times in recent history? And here's the difference. The difference is, I believe that the American people, in their vast and enormous majority, understand how exceptional and unique America is in the history of the world. Right. I know everybody says that. I know you read that. I know people say that. It's true. I always ask people this question. I say, okay, because people like to argue with me about that. When I say the United States is the greatest, I get to teach twice a week at Florida International University. From time to time, I interact with professors, and when I say that, they challenge me. Some of them actually challenge me on the idea that America is not the greatest nation in the history of the world. Ooh. And I say to them, this is what I say, okay, fine, who would you rather be? And they're like, whoa, that's not the point. I go, no, that is the point. What nation would you trade for ours? Even now, even with unemployment at 11%, even with all these things that are happening, whose future would you trade for ours? And they go off, well, you know, they got great medicine and whatever, or, you know, China this or Brazil that. And I said, no, you're talking to me about places where there's little things about those countries that we're like, who would you rather be? I'll take it a step further. What country in the history of humanity, and I mean in the entire history of humanity, would you trade places with? Again, they have no answer. And there's a reason why they have no answer. Because there's never been anything like this. Americans know that. The American people understand that. And they also understand, to a great degree, that this is a product of something very simple, and that is limited government. It's not, limited government is not just an economic theory. This is not just about laissez-faire that they like to say in French and all these other things. This is actually a very real decision that was made by the founders of this nation. A decision grounded in the Declaration of Independence that said that every human being on earth has unalienable rights that comes from their Creator. Rights that don't come from your government. They don't come from your king. They don't come from the Constitution. They don't even come from your parents. Your rights come from your Creator. And the notion that every human being ever born has rights that belong to them individually. They went a step further, and they said, we're going to have government, because we're not anarchists. But the role of government will be simply this, to protect those God-given rights. And the only power that government is going to have is the power we allow it to have. From that decision, from that very basic understanding of the role of government, has been created the most prosperous and freest people in all of human history. America remains the only place on earth where time and again people can open up businesses in the garage of their home. It's the only nation in human history where much of what will happen to you in your life isn't decided for you before you're even born. In most societies, who your parents are determines everything. If you're not born into the right family, you won't go to the right schools, you won't run in the right social circles, and you will never be able to emerge beyond the circumstances of your birth. America is the only country in human history where poor people can put rich people out of business because they have a better idea and are willing to work hard. Why is that? Is it because God loves America more than He loves Belgium? Is it because something special's in our water, or we're smarter than everybody else? It's the result of limited government. It's the result of the idea that we didn't want the government to pick winners and losers for us. Other industrialized nations did. Okay, in most of the industrialized world, they want government to guarantee them all kinds of things. Guaranteed health care, guaranteed child care, guaranteed housing, a guaranteed job. There's nothing inherently evil about these guarantees. But to have them, you must have big government. And here's the problem with big government. The bigger the government, the harder it is to open up a business in the garage of your home. The bigger the government, the harder it is to overcome the circumstances of your birth. The bigger the government, the harder it is for a poor person to compete with a rich person in the marketplace and succeed. What sets us apart from the world is a decision we have made about limited government. This noise that you're hearing out there right now in America, this worry, this anxiety, is because now the people who are in charge of this country are telling us that America, the one you grew up in, the one that's made your life possible, the one that made your parents' sacrifices worthwhile, that America, they say, is no longer possible.
You're wrong.
That's what I said to you. They believe that America is no longer possible. They argue that we must inevitably accept that our America must become more like the rest of the world. That somehow the only way to confront the issues of our time is to rely more on government, just like these other nations have. And you know what? The American people don't agree.
That's right.
The American people don't agree. Last November, a majority of Americans voted for this president. But they did not grant him a mandate to fundamentally redefine the role of government in our economy and in our lives. And that is precisely what they're doing now. I tell people time and again, the American people don't agree with the direction that this administration, this Congress would take us. You want to know why I know they don't agree with it? Because it's not what they campaigned on. They never campaigned on the promise of expanding government. They never campaigned on the idea of a single-payer system in healthcare. They never campaigned on the notion of printing and borrowing money to stimulate jobs, end quote, end quote. You know why else I know? I always laugh when I hear these arguments about, well, conservatives or there's no room for moderates in the Republican Party. What the mainstream media calls conservatism is the mainstream of American political thought.
That's right.
And here's why I know that. And you've heard it before explained, it's absolutely true. I watched the Republican debates. And all the candidates in the Republican debate, all they did was argue over who was more like Ronald Reagan. That's basically what the debate is about, right? I also watched the Democrat debates. I never heard them argue who was more like who was more like Lyndon Johnson or Jimmy Carter. In fact, not even Hillary wanted to be Bill. There's a reason why conservatives embrace the title of conservative, and liberals never want to be called liberals. Because the mainstream of American political thought is not there. Americans know that the source of our prosperity and our greatness is our people. And they understand that the direction that this Congress and this President would take us is wrong. And what they want are people that will go to Washington, D.C. and not just stand up to this, because standing up to it is important, but in fact offer an alternative. An alternative that's truer to our legacy and to our future. An alternative that says, we know that presidents and senators don't create jobs in America. Jobs are created by people who take money they have made and risk it, opening up a new business or expanding